Great. So Lars, you
Yes.
want to sit or to stay like this? As you saw, have you seen anything that changed on me? I'm not wearing heels anymore. I'm going with the startups community. So Lars, do you
Yes.
want first to say a little bit, who are you?
Yes,
Who is the
yes.
Google Maps creator?
Well, look, thank you for having me in the first place. I feel I'm in awe. I mean, with the leadership of Greece's by far most successful industry, most impactful industry. I feel quite out of my depth, to be honest. Did you get my joke? Out of my depth, shipping. That's as funny as a software engineer will ever get. Look, I was born in Denmark. I traveled around the world. I live in Greece now. My wife is a Greek goddess. My 9-year-old daughter is a Greek goddess in training, and I feel super lucky to be here.
Great, but you know, just a little bit, okay, I have to say a little bit about you because it's very important. So Panathēnea co-founder, we will talk about Panathēnea. Lars Rasmussen is an angel investor in Athens, Greece with a computer science PhD from Berkeley. In 2004, Lars and his brother Jens sold their mapping startup to Google and there lead the team that created Google Maps. Lars was next the director of engineering in Facebook in Menlo Park and London. His favorite investments include Canva. How many of us use Canva? Astranis, Neara, Fosprint, and Rescue Biotech. So I think many of these companies we will hear soon. He enjoys boating the Greek islands, kite surfing, and coffee. Greek or any coffee?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm more of an Italian coffee drinker.
Okay, no problem. So, Google Maps has changed the lives of billions of people.
Mm-hmm.
What was the original inspiration or problem that led to the creation of Google Maps that still is unique?
Yeah, no, that's the... Actually, do you guys use Google Maps?
Of course. Who is using
Anyone
Google Maps?
Yes. That
Bravo.
makes me so happy.
Sorry, can I ask something else? Who is using something different than Google Maps?
No, you don't have to answer
That's
that.
okay.
Yeah. But I'm thrilled that you were able to find your way here. I always get nervous when I see empty seats. I'm like, did they get lost? Was it my fault? I have this recurring nightmare that I'm giving a talk at that one place that Google Maps cannot find, and the room is empty or everyone is angry at me. But look, the answer to your question is very simple. I have no sense of direction. Like, you know how they're perfectly smart people can be dyslexic and you never learn to... I have that problem with direction. Like, I get lost in my 3-bedroom apartment, in particular when I need the bathroom in a hurry. And this is actually like the joke that keeps on giving. My friends love letting me sort of quietly lead the way without me realizing, and we always get lost. And then they go, oh, the maps guy got lost again. It's so much fun. And so we really just need it. I did this with my brother. And we really just needed better maps so we don't get lost in the world. And this was a long time ago. I don't know if you guys remember, but in tech there was this .com bubble in the late 90s, and I joined a startup fresh out of school, and then the bubble burst, and that we got laid off, my brother and I. So this was maybe in 2001 or so, and it was a terrible time in tech. Like, the stock market lost 80% of its value across 2 years, took a decade to recover. And so right at that time, when everyone was getting laid off, and no one was investing, my brother had this idea, hey, we should make maps better on the internet. And you won't remember this one in America, but MapQuest was kind of the king, the first mover, and you had a web page with a small map you could barely read and a bunch of text. And my brother had this very simple idea, we should make the map bigger and prettier and faster and fill up the whole screen, and then we should put the information on top. And he had some very simple ideas for how to make that happen, and we set out to build it. And it's a long story, but it's, as you can imagine, an intense source of pride for me that I think actually billions of people use Google Maps every year.
Of course.
Every month.
How do you define AI in practical terms? And what should we anticipate?
Yes, we shall all be obsolete soon, starting with me. That was a joke. No one is laughing. Okay, look. I think So yeah, I'm approaching 60. I know you can't tell, but in my lifetime, by far the most impactful innovation that humanity has ever produced. Like I think computers obviously has had quite an impact, and they're not that old computers. You know, we're talking maybe 75 years or so. The internet was incredible. That was kind of the technology I grew up with. Mobile phones, but AI is something else. And I have to be honest, if you had asked me, say, a couple of years before ChatGPT launched, how far is AI from being able to conquer, say, natural language, to read and write as well or even better than most humans, I would have predicted it was quite a bit further out in the future, because I have lots of friends that work in that space, and for decades they'd been telling me we just need more data and we just need better, faster computers, and then AI will be able to do those things. And I've seen over and over it not happening, and suddenly that really did happen. And I think it was an eye-opener for me, but also the entire industry. Like if you look at the amount of effort in time and money, like trillions of dollars pouring into building machines that will be able to do, I think it's a reasonable prediction that within our lifetimes, any kind of cognitive task that humans do today, machines will probably be able to do better. And there is a lot of debate, to my joke before, will that make us all obsolete? I'm convinced that's not the case. I'm convinced that it'll make us all superhuman. And in fact, that's how I feel now. So I have spent a decade, 2 decades learning how to program computers. I kind of drifted away from it. I became a manager, I became an investor. Now I help younger people do that. But I just wrote an app the other day, again for the first time in a decade, without writing a single line of code. I just talked to an AI and it wrote the code for me. And I think that's incredible. And I would encourage you, I mean, I don't have to tell you this, right? So you're in one of the most important industries in the world, and I'm convinced it'll be disrupted in the same way that every other industry will be. And I encourage you to be on the forefront of this. I do think that all industries are going to go through some convulsions, and the first movers, the first adopters of this incredible new technology will undoubtedly win.
They will. Okay, let's hope that AI will try to give us a little bit more free time, because the more AI we have, the less free time we're having. So please work on an application on this also. I know you're doing many nice things with music,
Yes,
but
yes.
we need. So from Silicon Valley in Athens, you
Yes.
moved in Athens. You decided a few years before to move in Athens.
Yes.
Except the beautiful family that I'm very happy and lucky to know.
Yes.
And the first princess and the second princess you are having in your life. What do you see? What opportunities you see in Greece? I was very happy last year that we were together and I said, Lars, are you still believing in Greece? You still see something? You said, yes, I see many new opportunities. What do you see in Greece?
Yes, look, so I've been in love with my Greek goddess since college. 20 short years.
The Greek goddess is the Greek wife, eh? Just
yes.
for the men here.
And so I've long, thought about Greece, and actually in 2012 we were kind of at a crossroads in our lives. I was between projects. My wife's older daughter was just graduating from high school, and so we came here in 2012 at the depth of the crises, with the intention of considering maybe we should move here because it's so beautiful and wonderful. And since we're in startups, actually I gave a talk at a TEDx here, which is one of the best talks I've ever given, because Ella, my wife, wrote most of the scripts. That was actually funny. And I try to make the case for startup people that economic crisis is potentially actually a good time to become an entrepreneur. Remember, my own story as an entrepreneur with Google Maps started at the worst of economic times in tech. But then when we toured the startup ecosystem in Athens, it was a very short tour. I have to be honest. In 2012, there was not a lot going on. And more than anything, I felt the young people were depressed. And I can't blame them. I mean, this was really a terrible thing to have happen, right? And maybe there was more thinking about how can we get out of here rather than how can we start new companies. And so we decided not to move here, also because our older daughter got accepted to university in New York, so we moved with her. She was thrilled that we followed her. And then, you know, the pandemic happened and stuff happened, and then at the depth of the pandemic, we're actually living in New York now. On a whim, we decided to come back to Greece, primarily, honestly, because New York had gone mad during the pandemic, and Greece seemed to have not gone mad. And so we moved here on a whim, and we thought, look, we're angel investors now. So we have maybe 100 investments in startup around the world. We're always in the wrong time zone anyway, so let's be in a sunny, wrong time zone. But we didn't come with a lot of expectations. Like, only 8 years had passed since that experience in 2012. And so we came here, and of course we couldn't do this sort of fun because there was a pandemic, right? But we heard of this one startup, and they showed up in our backyards, and we were wearing masks and so on. And then we thought, wow, that's really cool. And we invested in this company called Panathēnea that make metabolic testing equipment. And then word got out that there was a new angel investing couple in town, right? And then all these startups came at us from everywhere, and we were blown away, and we started meeting investors. I think there's now 30 active venture capitalist firm here. There are hundreds of startups. The first, we call them unicorns, when a startup hit $1 billion euro valuation, and those are starting to emerge. And I couldn't believe that such a vibrant, fast-growing, hungry ecosystem of startups could have emerged in just 8 years. And I do think, not that one should wish a crisis like what happened to Greece on anyone, but I must say, you know, I take my hat off the way Greece took advantage of this. There is a saying, you should never let a good crisis go to waste. And I do think Greece, and certainly the startup ecosystem, has done that. And it's a really exciting place to be for me. And one of the things that excite me is that, you know, when I'm in a place like New York or Silicon Valley, because of my background in maps, all the young people wanting to do something with maps come to me, and they want me to invest in their startups. And that's amazing, but it does get a little monotonous when I came to Greece, because there is still a lack of angel investors here. Everybody that's doing anything comes to me. And so those startups you listed, I've invested in a company that I think might be the first to find a cure for Alzheimer's. Like, they have bred a culture of bacteria that can mimic Alzheimer's, but also pump out potential cures. And so it's a platform that discovers drugs in a certain area of medicine, and they actually have a very promising candidate now for Alzheimer's that perform better than any other previous thing at the early stage preclinical trials, so it's a long game. But this is not the sort of thing I normally get to deal with. Another startup, Fastprint, it's a professor out of Ndua, spent 30 years building 3D printing machines, and she has now built one with her young team that prints with human tissue. And I also thought, that sounds crazy. But this turns out to be a thing, and there's a few companies doing this around the world, but I think this one, out of Demokritos in wherever that is, right, it will be the first company in the world that gets a surgical procedure approved with a machine like that. And like, I don't normally get to even hear about that stuff, let alone help out, and so it's a super exciting place to be. And then I get to build Panathēnea.
And this is what I will ask you now, Panathēnea, that I'm very happy that I have been part of the discussions before Panathēnea, and I'm very happy that I'm also part of the discussions for next Panathēnea.
Yes.
So Panathēnea Festival, first Panathēnea, was organized in May 2025, and we will be having our next Panathēnea. I say our because I feel it like being a little bit part
Definitely
of the team.
Ours. Yes.
Next Panathēnea in May 2026, just before Posidonia.
Right before Posidonia, yeah.
And why not? I know that the people from Posidonia are here, but I want to say, what are we waiting? What is Panathēnea, and what we're waiting for from next Panathēnea? What is your vision?
I'm super excited about Panathēnea. So it's an international festival of innovation that we're starting here in Athens. So what happened was this: we were blown away by how fast the ecosystem had grown, but then we also thought, how can we help it grow even faster? In addition, of course, we have now invested in maybe 10, 12 Greek startups, but how can we help the whole ecosystem? And so we traveled to cities around Europe, in particular Helsinki in Finland, and Lisbon in Portugal. And because they are similar-sized cities and similar-sized countries, but have much bigger startup ecosystems. So we went and asked, what did you do that we also should do? And in both of those cities, they point to the fact that they have big international tech festivals. It's called Web Summit in Lisbon. 70,000 people come to Lisbon every year for this big tech conference. In Helsinki, they have Slush, where like 25,000 people come. And all of the startup people in those cities give credit to these big festivals for how they've grown their ecosystem. What happens is two things. One is that when you do that big festival, like think 100,000 people will come to Athens for a big international innovation festival in 5 years. And yes, I am serious about that. Right, so then the entire national conversation becomes about entrepreneurship, about innovation, about creativity, about changing the world. And it helps the shift that's already on the way, I think, in Greece and other countries, right, that where maybe 10 years ago, young people were looking for a steady job in a government or a big company, but more and more young people are getting interested in entrepreneurship. And then the other thing that happens is a lot of people come through town and they have the same experience I had, which is they're blown away with how vibrant and amazing and youthful and hungry the local startup ecosystem is. And you make all these international connections, make things grow faster. And then once we've made this observation, we thought, well, what should we build? Like, what's our festival? And actually, it just so happened that one of the biggest existing festivals, I think called South by Southwest, it's in Austin, Texas, also really helped grow Austin from a small 800,000 person college town into now the biggest and fastest growing tech city in America. They wanted a European home. They picked 5 cities in Europe, a very energetic Greek diaspora person in Austin, Agelos. He managed to persuade them to put Athens on that list. And we kind of got roped in, my wife Ella and I got roped into organizing the team, proposing to Texas that they should make Athens their home. And we raised 60 million euros. 60 million, that still blows my mind, in just 3 months of effort, all from Greek sources, by the way, to back a 5-year deal with Texas. Long story, we got really, really close to winning that deal, but unfortunately they picked London instead, and by unfortunately I mean thankfully they picked London, because then we get to build something much better ourselves. And we thought, look, everyone knows that the Olympic Games, biggest sporting festival in the world, is a modern version of an ancient Greek tradition. So we went and consulted with one of the world's greatest classical scholars called ChatGPT. You probably know her, knows everything. And we were like, hey, Chatty, I call her Chatty, was there any other popular ancient Greek festivals that we could reimagine into a big international festival of innovation? And Chatty said, what a great idea, Lars. She's so nice. And then she told me about Panathēnea, which all the Greeks in the room have heard about.
So next year, May 2026, 26 to 28, I'm remembering right?
27th to 29th.
27 to 29th.
It's the Wednesday through Friday right before Panathēnea.
Great. So whoever wants to learn more, be our guest. We will be informing about this. We will be sending to, and we will upload the video of May 2025. Yeah. We will start discussions for Panathēnea and shipping for 2026. I know that some people that see me now in technology are doing like this to me, so it's a yes.
Yes, we love that.
Lars, thank you very, very much for being with us. The first interview of Lars. Thank you very, very much.